Do you want to finally break the cycle of mindless scrolling and replace it with something that actually feels good? Do you want to combat brain rot and feel mentally sharp again? Do you want to get back into reading on a regular basis without feeling like you're being forced to read books that you have zero interest in? Do you want to learn that new skill you keep saying you'll get around to but never actually start? Do you want to feel your brain working again instead of sleepwalking through life on autopilot? Do you want to rebuild your attention span so you can focus for longer than 5 minutes at a time? Do you want to feel excited and passionate again instead of being bored and overstimulated at the same time? Do you want to be more intentional about your free time instead of just being dragged down by the algorithm? If any of these sound good to you, may I present the personal curriculum? What is a personal curriculum, you might ask? Well, let me tell you. This is a concept, a term that was coined by TikToker Elizabeth Jean. I'll link her page in the description box so you can check her out if you're interested. Not only is she a fellow Elizabeth, meaning that she is automatically probably an awesome person, but she had a great idea that has not only taken TikTok by storm, but also the entire internet. Elizabeth had started posting videos about her monthly practice of creating a structured study plan for topics she was interested in. The basic idea is to create a self-directed learning plan focused on an area of personal interest, loosely based on a school curriculum structure with things like assigned reading, goals, even potentially assignments or final projects. At its core, the personal curriculum movement is about celebrating lifelong learning. It's about celebrating intellectual curiosity. It's about being more intentional about how we spend our time when we're not sleeping or at work or doing the basic maintenance or admin or chores to keep our lives going. It's about using our free time in a way that enriches our lives, in a way that is purposeful and intentional and joyful, indulging our curiosity even as adults, even once we're outside of structured school environments, getting excited about learning and allowing ourselves the freedom to go down those rabbit holes in our very special interests and challenge our brains in ways that we maybe don't get the chance to in our day-to-day lives. When I first came across this idea, I may have gone down a rabbit hole of watching many TikToks of different people talking about their own personal curriculums and why they were excited about this idea. And I heard so many times the refrain of using this as a way to combat brain rot. I think so many of us have noticed our attention spans be pretty much entirely obliterated by the current state of the internet. I think so many of us are weighed down by our day-to-day life, our responsibilities, and just the stress of the world we live in and all the terrible things that are happening every day. I think a lot of us are overworked and tired and might fall into a routine of just doom scrolling for a few hours after work and chores and then crashing for the night and repeat. Never really finding the time or committing to using our brains for our own fulfillment and enrichment rather than using our brains to make someone else rich. And I just love the idea of this trend for so many different reasons. Not only do I also find myself falling into this daily routine of languishing on the couch, doom scrolling, and never really getting around to any of the hobbies or projects or free time personal reading that I want to get around to, but I also have always been an insatiably curious person. I find so many things interesting. I often wish that I could live many lives so I could do all the many different careers that I want to do and be an academic in dozens of fields and travel to every place on the planet and get to talk to people doing cool things everywhere and anywhere. I just find almost anything fascinating if I am learning it from someone who is passionate and knowledgeable about it. If you're still not convinced by the idea of a personal curriculum, let me just throw a bunch more reasons at you. Maybe one of these will resonate. It gives structure to your curiosity so your learning has direction. It helps you actually follow through on interests rather than letting them fade. It turns vague goals into concrete weekly actions. It supports slow, deep learning instead of surface-level skimming. It creates a fun sense of play by reinventing school for your grown-up self. It encourages self-improvement and self-awareness and personal growth. It gives you the opportunity to explore a topic or a skill without the pressure to be perfect. perfect. It gives you the chance to develop skills that matter for your creative or career goals. It keeps you from doom scrolling or passive consuming because you have a plan. It lets you design learning that fits your neurotype, schedule, and energy levels. It makes it easier to choose what to read or watch next because you have a curated list. It gives you a reason to explore libraries, archives, or media you would not normally discover. It lets you explore being a beginner again in a low-pressure way. It reminds you that learning is not just for children or formal students. It builds self-trust as you keep a promise to yourself and complete your courses. It encourages a focus on consistency and longevity that can improve your life in so many different areas. And speaking of consistency and longevity, I want to thank this video's sponsor, Ana Luisa, whose pieces I've been wearing consistently for over 5 years now. There are pieces in my Ana Luisa collection that have been through the trenches with me, okay? I have worn these while sleeping, in the shower, on flights, swimming in the ocean. They've been tossed in purses and backpacks and suitcases and stuffed in pockets and then found 6 months later and still look brand new. Ana Luisa's pieces are exceptional quality yet affordable. They start at just $39 and come with a 2-year warranty. I have 6 piercings in my ears, so I'm constantly doing a little ear stack, and Ana Luisa is my favorite way to do that, especially with their Huggies, which are, I kid you not, the most comfortable earrings I have ever worn in my life. If you have not tried Huggies, you are seriously missing out, and Ana Luisa has so many beautiful designs and different sizes as well. Right now I'm wearing a little mix of old and new. In my first piercing, I have the Elise Huggy hoops. These are gorgeous. They're so sparkly, very classy and elegant, yet understated. Every time I wear these, I kind of feel like a princess. In my second piercing, I have the Nava Huggy hoops. Again, sparkly, elegant, yet understated. And then in my third piercing here, I just have this tiny set of twist Huggy hoops. They tuck in nice and tight around my ears so that they're not hanging down too low, getting caught on things. And I find the twist so elegant, it gives them a little bit more interest than a plain hoop. And for my necklaces, once again, a little combo of new and old. This locket I have owned for at least 3 or 4 years. It's one of my favorite Ana Luisa pieces that I wear constantly. And then brand new to me, the Claire necklace. I love this one too. So beautiful. Again, very sparkly, very elegant, a little bit of a understated princess vibe, which I just cannot resist. The vast majority of my jewelry collection at this point is from Ana Luisa. Pretty much every piece I ever wear on a day-to-day basis or in my videos from Ana Luisa. If you want to build your own daily wear stacks that are going to last you for years and years and years, now's the time to check out Ana Luisa. They're offering up to 30% off the entire website, and the bestsellers go fast, so use the link in my description box to check them out. Maybe build your own little ear stack or necklace stack, pick up your daily wear ride or die pieces, or maybe pick up some gifts for your friends and family that they can love for years to come. Check out Ana Luisa today, and thank you again to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video. Now let's just say that I've convinced you that this is a great idea and you want to know more. Amazing. Let's talk about the actual process of building a personal curriculum. I'll also share some of the courses that I have been building for myself and the ones that I'm going to be starting off with in my first term, my first quarter for the beginning of 2026, just in case you're curious and want a bit of an example. I also, of course, have a Notion template because I can't help myself. At this point, I have no plans to share the template, but if enough of you are interested and want it for yourselves, I will make it available. So I think one of the best places to start, as with almost anything, is a good old brainstorm. Now, some of you might have heard of this idea and immediately known exactly what course you want to do. You know exactly what you want to learn, you know what resources you want to use for it, it immediately popped into your brain. And if so, that is incredible. But I think for a lot of us, while we might immediately have a few things come to mind, they might come to mind in a more nebulous, unformed way. And a brainstorm is a really great way to get from a little bit of a unformed infancy stage idea to something as fully developed as your own personal curriculum. Now, of course, we all know how to brainstorm, but let me give you a couple questions you can ask yourself as a bit of a starting point, especially if you're drawing a blank at the beginning of this process. Which topics have I been interested in or curious about for months or years, but never given myself the time to truly study? What skills do I wish I had, but I've never taken the time to learn or master? Or alternatively, which skills have I learned, but then allowed to fester and fall into disuse? What problems or questions keep coming up in my life or work that I maybe want to dig into a little bit deeper? What niche interests or topics do I find myself constantly seeking out in the media I consume? What are those thumbnails, those topics, those ideas that I will always click on when they show up on my feed? If I had all the money and time in the world, what would be my dream degree? What would I want to study all day, every day, if I had nothing else to worry about? And connected to that, what would be my dream career if I didn't have to worry about going back to school or making enough money to sustain my life? How would I want to spend my days if I had full freedom? What topics or ideas make me excited, get me passionate, get me riled up? What do I want to be able to debate with my friends or family? It can even be the smallest snippet of an idea or a concept that you just happened to come across and kind of wedged itself in your brain and won't let go. Use these questions and more to just dump every idea that comes to your mind on a piece of paper, in Notion, on a note on your phone, however you like to do it. Just drop all the ideas down, but record them so that you have them later. Because if you build a personal curriculum, if you do a term and it's a success, you might want to make this a routine that you carry forward in your life. So having a huge list of possible ideas that you can go back to every time you're building a new curriculum will be so incredibly helpful. It will also let you see in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, which of those ideas are still just as exciting to you even after a long period of time. Because the ideas that aren't just a flash in the pan are really the ones that are worth taking the time to study. Once you have a long list, take some time to read over it and really notice which ones get you excited and which ones feel a little bit more like an obligation or like something that maybe you'd be interested in if you watched a 10-minute YouTube video on it, but not really something you would want to dive deep into and spend a lot of your free time learning about. Also take the time to look for patterns. See if there are connections between different ideas. Are there different ideas, different points on your list that could be combined in an interesting way in a course? Are there certain ideas or themes or flavors that keep popping up again and again and again? Are any of these things that you already have the equipment for in your house? Maybe getting dusty and not being used. I'm definitely not speaking from personal experience. Or are any of these things skills or ideas or topics that could enhance your day-to-day life or could help you get a promotion at work? Of course, you don't have to just pick ideas that are most practical, that help you save money because you've learned how to grow your own vegetables, or help you make more money for your employer because you get really good at building spreadsheets, but they can if that's your interest. Of course, don't forget that this is also allowed to just be about you and your own personal interests. I personally think that the best way to go about this is to pick topics that light you up. The topics that give you a sparkle in your eye when you describe them to your best friend or your partner, the ideas that make you want to drop everything and dive into them right now, yesterday, last week, those are the ideas that you're going to have enough excitement about to make it all the way through a course. So focus on what makes you excited, what lights you up, what makes you feel joyful and creative and curious, and focus less on the things that feel like they should be your interests or they'll benefit you in some way. Some more things to consider as you try to narrow down your long brainstormed list into some options for your first personal curriculum. Like I said, focus on ideas that feel exciting rather than obligatory. Maybe you want to be the kind of person who has read all of Charles Dickens' works, but maybe you actually don't enjoy his writing style. That's okay. You don't have to force yourself to do things that don't bring you joy. Maybe you're much more excited about the idea of analyzing gender roles in romantasy. That's amazing. That sounds like a great course. Maybe I'll add that to my list. Now, different people set their personal curriculums to be different lengths of time. I've seen a lot of people do monthly personal curriculums, monthly courses or terms. I personally feel like a month goes by like that. I feel like I blink and it's the next month. So that is not doable for me. I'm personally doing courses that are going to last 3 months or a quarter of the year. I also like the idea of them loosely coinciding with the seasons of the year and feeling like I'm moving through the different seasons of my life as I move through the different curriculums that I've built for myself. So for me, when I was looking at my brainstormed list, I was trying to find topics, ideas, skills, areas of study that I could see myself being interested in and really diving deep into for a full 12 weeks. But maybe for you, you're planning on doing monthly courses, or every 6 weeks you're going to switch it up. So obviously take your own timeline into account. But even if you're only doing 4-week monthly courses, spending a month on one topic is still not an insignificant amount of time, and probably a lot more time than what you've previously been dedicating to various topics of interest if you've been less intentional about your self-study in the past. Do try to separate out the ideas that are maybe a little too narrow for your selected time frame, maybe better suited to an afternoon or two of research rather than a longer course, or maybe ideas that interest you on a surface level that you would watch a hour-long documentary about, but not the kind of idea that you're so passionate about that it will sustain you, again, for a whole month or 8 weeks or 12 weeks, depending on your timeline. Conversely, if you go too broad with it, you're going to have trouble. You want to make sure that your idea is specific enough that you're not getting stuck in the weeds, that you're not lost in the mire of too many ideas, too many possible directions to take your study. Choosing a topic that is world history is just way too broad. Not even someone who's doing a multi-year degree in history is just studying world history. They're narrowing down the scope to something much more specific. And while you don't have to get super granular about it, you do want to have a specific idea in mind. And hopefully when I share the courses that I've been coming up with, it will help give you a bit of an idea of maybe the level of specificity that you want to get to as you're building your courses. Of course, all of this is up to you. It is a personal curriculum after all, so if you want to get more broad or really, really niche down with it, you are free to. That's the best part of this. You don't have to focus on the scope that a professor at your university decided on. You get to study whatever you want, and that's what makes it so fun. I'd also recommend, especially for your first curriculum, to focus on at most 3 to 4 courses. That might even be way too much for you, depending on your schedule and how much you have going on in your life. We all have so much going on. We all have a lot of responsibilities. We're all tired. So it's okay if you want to start off with 1 course, just 1, or maybe you just want to start with 2 or 3. Don't get too carried away. Don't start with a full complement of courses and overload yourself and burn out, because that's no fun. Remember, you have maybe not all the time in the world, but you have time. So you can keep doing more terms for yourself after this one if you enjoy it. You don't have to do all the ideas right away. Maybe for most of you, this is not a problem, but for me and my fellow ADHD friends, this might be a problem. Don't start with so much that you burn yourself out and never want to do this again. Start a little small. Maybe even do a little bit less than you think you can manage so that it's not a huge burden on your time. It will be more fun that way, I promise. So now at this point, hopefully you have narrowed down your ideas to maybe 3 or 4 core topics, skills, areas of study that you're really interested in. And at this point, you're going to want to start actually building your courses. And what I personally found most helpful at this stage was to focus on finding resources to build my courses around. In my case, that was mostly books, because I am a bookworm. I read over 100 books a year. I read for my job. I love to read, and I do think books are wellsprings of knowledge and very useful in learning just about anything. And you can find really well-researched, really informative, transformative works of literature and nonfiction in just about any topic you're interested in. Of course, if you're not much of a reader or you just have less time, you could focus on short form writing like articles, or you could go completely away from reading. You could move over to visual media with documentaries, for example, or maybe focus on podcasts and interviews. The options truly are endless. But if you're like me and you want a reading list to go along with each of your courses, I have some tips and tricks for how to find the books that perfectly suit your personal curriculum. A great way to start, and something I found really helpful, was searching for university courses that are similar to the course that I'm building and checking out what their reading list is. Most university courses have their syllabi, have their reading lists, required reading on their websites, so you can peruse those and get get lots of amazing ideas that have been curated by experts in the field that you want to study. If you already own books on a particular topic, maybe you want to build the course out of the books you already own. Focus on the things that those books are focusing on so that you can use what you already have, and then maybe later on you'll want to dive into a different corner or make a different connection from that original topic. If you already own a book or have read a book on this topic, check out the bibliography, check out the resources, see what that author read to write their book. Maybe those books will lead you down a good path. See if there are any universities with online courses that you can audit or take for free or a very low cost that can either supplement the course you want to do or can just be a course you want to take in its entirety. Go to your local library and ask your librarian for help. I promise they have so much knowledge to share with you, and also they will love this idea. They will be so excited, I guarantee it. If you come in with some niche topic that you really want to study, or you want to do an interdisciplinary study pulling together this topic, and this is this really niche thing that you want to dive into, I promise that if they don't personally know, they will find someone that can help them find the perfect reading list for you and all the resources you could want, and I imagine that you will absolutely make their day. Also, it's free. Use the internet, search for the particular topics you're looking for, see what comes up. I'm also a huge fan of Reddit. I think it's a great place to find niche information, and I've also found it to be really helpful in finding very specific books on niche topics. Either you can ask a question in a community related to your area of study and see what people suggest, or you can just search posts that already exist, see what people have recommended. Maybe you want to get into psychology. Maybe you've always wanted to study psychology. I guarantee you there are probably hundreds of subreddits focused on psychology, and if you search them for resources for beginners, videos to watch, creators they can learn from, podcasts they can listen to, books they can read, people will have recommended so many different resources, and you can use those to build your own reading, watching, listening list. I personally found it easiest to find my resources first and then to build a course out of the resources I found rather than do the opposite. Because the course can be whatever you want and you can sort of focus it on whatever you want, I think it's easier to build the course once you know what you'll be reading or watching, tailor it to that material, rather than building a course and then struggling to find books or videos or podcasts or interviews that focus on that very specific thing. Again, your mileage may vary. You can do it however you want. Your destiny belongs to you. But I just personally found this a lot easier for building my courses, starting with the resources and then building a course. So I came up with a really basic template for building a course. If you just want something to fill out, I'll link it in the description box. I'm putting together a blog post on my website just to summarize everything I'm talking about in this video so that you can remind yourself, and also with this template that you can copy and paste and fill in with your own information, just to make it a little bit easier to lay out, plan, structure your course. I think it's always helpful to have either one or just a few sentences to really summarize what you're trying to learn, what's your purpose, what's your mission statement for this course, what are you most interested in examining, what skill do you want to learn how to do, what's your ultimate goal here. You might not need both of these categories, but I think it's helpful to either have a list of core questions you want to find the answer to, or key topics that you want to study. Of course, you want a section for required reading or watching or listening, your resources. Here's a great place to list out the books you want to read, the videos you want to watch, etc., etc. There's also a section for optional or supplemental resources. Maybe there are really interesting articles or videos you came across that didn't fit quite as neatly into your course idea, but you still want to have them listed. If you get a little bit of extra time, you want to dive into those as well, go on little side quests. Next, I think it's helpful to build some kind of a weekly structure or plan. Depending on how type A you are, you can get really detailed with this, or you can just be a little bit more laissez-faire. It's up to you. I personally thought it was helpful to kind of get to the level of granularity of deciding which chapters of each book I was going to read in each week, just quickly flipping through the books and seeing the topics of the different chapters and kind of breaking them into chunks that make sense, that are also a reasonable amount of reading for my own reading speed and my schedule. So maybe you want to say, I'm going to read chapter 1 to 3 of the first book, and I'm going to watch this video for week 1. Then week 2, I'm going to read chapters 4 through 8, and I'm going to read this article. And then week 3, I'm gonna only read chapter 9 because it's a really long one, or it's covering a topic that I find more complex. And maybe I also wanna watch this video and possibly peruse this forum to help me understand these concepts. And then maybe in week 4, I just wanna review everything I learned weeks 1 through 3 and check out some of my additional resources and maybe do an assignment or two, do a little bit of journaling, answer some questions about what I've read so far. Maybe I want to challenge myself to explain these concepts to my family or friends to prove to myself that I've understood it before I move on to the next thing. Just an example, again, you can get as specific as you want, but you can also be very general where maybe you just say, okay, I have 3 books I want to read for this course. So in month 1, I'm going to read book 1. In month 2, I'm going to read book 2. Month 3, I'm going to read book 3. And that's it. I also have a section for practices or habits. I think this is particularly helpful if you're trying to learn a skill, but it can be useful no matter what you're doing and what you're trying to learn. If there are things that you want to incorporate into your daily or weekly or monthly schedule to facilitate your course and your learning, this is a good place to write those out. Maybe things like a monthly reflection by journaling about what you've learned so far. Maybe if you're learning a language, you want to do a weekly recap of all your new vocabulary and test yourself. The next section is for assignments or projects. Again, this is completely self-directed, so if you don't want to do any assignments or projects, you don't have to. If you do want to do homework and assignments and projects, you can. That's what's so great about this. I would recommend doing at least one project or assignment, even if it's just writing out 1 page of what you learned. I think it's a good way to prove to yourself that you did really do your course. It's hard evidence that you went through it. It shows what you've learned if you've synthesized the information. But there are so many different types of projects. You could do a full large-scale presentation board like you would have in school. You could make your partner sit on the couch as you give a presentation with a full PowerPoint about what you learned. If you're a creator like I am, you could make a video explaining what it was that you learned, or a video essay or something. You could tell your best friend or your sibling that you're going to call them at the end of this period of time and you're going to explain to them in 20 minutes what you learned. So you know that you can express what you've taken in, but also that you can do it concisely. If you're working on learning a language, maybe you want to challenge yourself to talk to a native speaker on the phone and have a conversation. Maybe if you are trying to learn how to play an instrument, you want to be able to play a full piece from beginning to end in front of an audience of your cats without stopping or starting over. Maybe you want to go more of a traditional route and you really want to write an essay, maybe even a 5-paragraph essay. The world is your oyster. I think there are as many different possible projects and assignments as there are people who might be drawn to this idea. And I think different types of projects and assignments are going to be better suited to different types of courses, different subject matter. You get the drift. Now you can set it up where you have daily or weekly homework or assignments, and then a couple smaller projects, and then 1 big project at the end, or you could just do 1 assignment or project at the very end of your whole course, or anywhere in between. You can really set this up however you like, but again, keep in mind, maybe not making it so time-consuming and so challenging that it becomes another chore, that it starts to stress you out, and that you just give up on it, but also maybe consider challenging yourself a little bit. And instead of not assigning yourself anything at all, maybe try to even assign yourself a paragraph of journaling about what you learned at the end of each week. I think you'll find that you're more capable than you think you are, and that challenging yourself to produce content instead of just consuming it is a really great way to make sure that what you're learning really sticks. And then the last section is just final reflection. I've just plugged in a couple things that you could use as a base, but you could create your own final reflection questions to really try to summarize your entire experience, to try to reflect on your experience, and also as a way to figure out if there's something else, either going deeper or maybe, making weird connections, or maybe going off in another direction, that you could take a future course to continue to build on what you've already learned. And once you've filled out your entire course structure, again, you don't have to do all of these categories and you don't have to get really into the nitty-gritty details of these. But once you have this filled out, you have a course built and ready to go. You have your resources, you have a plan, you know what you want to learn, you know what your final goal is or what you're going to be doing as a final project if you are doing one. And at this point, all there is to do is to dive in. Now, maybe you're still feeling a little bit overwhelmed or you just want a few more examples. Don't worry, I will share my own personal curriculum for the start of 2026. Like I said, I built an entire Notion ecosystem for my personal curriculum because of course I did. I use Notion for literally everything in my life. But I especially thought it would be useful for my personal curriculum to track all of my course ideas as I get them, and then also to have a place, a centralized place to keep my reading list, my syllabi, and also any notes that I'm taking on a particular subject so they're easy to find and where I can save my assignments and just keep everything centralized and be able to come back to it later. So this is my personal curriculum on Notion. Again, like I said, I don't really have any plans to share this template. It's pretty basic and straightforward, but if enough of you are interested, then maybe I'll make it available to my patrons, just like I did for my reading tracker on Notion. Very simple. I have a little navigation for disciplines, subjects, courses, and notes. And then I have a section to show my current term. So these are just the courses that I am focusing on this term for the first 3 months of 2026. Instead of seeing all the courses that I have brainstormed, all the courses that I have started building at once, I can just look at the ones that I'm currently studying. I have those there. And then I also have a calendar here. If I want to plan out what I'm doing, if I want to give myself deadlines for different readings or different projects, I can put those in here. And I'm roughly organizing this, breaking this down in the way that a university might. So for different disciplines, I have things like the humanities, the arts, STEM. And then once you go into the disciplines, you have different subjects. So humanities has literature, it has philosophy. The arts has dance and music. STEM has math and science. Again, you get it. If I go directly to subjects, I can see all the different ones I have here: crafts, dance, gender and sexuality, history, literature, math, music, philosophy, psychology. And then I have individual courses. So here are just the courses that I've built out past a simple idea. So I do have a big brainstorming document where I've just written down all the topics and things that I might want to study. But these courses are ones that I have done that vetting. I've gone back through, determined that they not only could be sustained for a longer period of time, but that I'm really excited about them. And I've taken a little bit more time thinking about either my reading list or what the syllabus might be like, or what projects I might want to do. Because I've taken more time with them, done more of that ideation, then they sit here in this courses view. Each course is its own page, and these are just a few of them here. So I have a rhythmic lineage, tap history and fundamentals, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and the 19th Century Orchestra, bisexual erasure from time immemorial, bookbinding 101, Dante in translation, the Divine Comedy and other minor works, infinity and set theory, some infinities are bigger than others, the complex web of grief, a personal exploration, what we owe to each other, moral philosophy in the Good Place. Fellow Good Place fans, stand up. And last one here, writing for the stage, the art of playwriting. So these are just some of the courses that I've taken to that next planning stage and that I'm really excited about. But as much as I would love to study all of these right now, yesterday, last week, I am trying to be more reasonable and only focusing on 3 to start with. My bisexual erasure course, my Dante in translation course, and my tap dance course. Try to pick things from different areas of study and also that required different parts of my brain and would build different skills. So starting with the tap dancing course, this is my physicality, this is my artistic course, my self-expression course, my skill-based course. I started tapping when I was 5 years old, and it was one of my first and greatest loves when it comes to dance. My first ever solo for dance competitions was a tap solo. I was obsessed with tap and I love it so much to this day, but I don't practice my tapping as much as I used to now that I'm retired from dancing professionally. And I really wanted to dive in not only to tapping and practicing tap on a regular basis, but also into rebuilding some of those foundational, fundamental skills, doing those drills, and also taking time to refresh myself on tap history and where tap comes from, which is largely from the Black dance community. I love the idea of both engaging my nerdy brain and also getting myself moving and dancing and getting back into tapping shape through this course. And of course, I am doing so with the help of books. I did already own one of these, Tap Works. This is a tap dictionary and reference manual, and it goes through all of the foundational steps and also gives some basic exercises to practice a bunch of the different steps, and gives a tiny bit of history and etymology for where the names came from and who coined particular steps, for example. I believe I bought this for my college degree in musical theater, and I've read it a little bit, but I have not gone through it cover to cover and done every exercise and learned every step. And I think that would be a really cool experience and a really good challenge. So I have this. And then of course I bought some new books, well, new to me because they're all used, but another book on technique and the actual act of dancing, and 2 on history. So the other one on technique is Inside Tap. I saw this one recommended a lot on tap forums online. This one's about technique and improvisation. Again, has a lot of exercises that I can learn, which is awesome. So excited to dive into that one. And then, like I said, I also want to get into the history and respecting the greats that made tap what it is. So I have 2 history books to dive into. I have Tap Dancing America, A Cultural History, and I also have Brotherhood and Rhythm, The Jazz Tap Dancing of the Nicholas Brothers. I was obsessed with the Nicholas Brothers as a kid. I remember seeing videos of them and just being so entranced and amazed by their athleticism and their musicality, and just they're amazing. If you haven't seen a video of the Nicholas Brothers, what are you doing with your life? Anyway, I'm very excited to read a whole book about them. I cannot wait. I'm also, of course, going to be watching so many videos of the tap dancing greats, all of the iconic videos that I watched as a kid that I haven't watched for ages, and probably trying to find new videos that maybe have come to light since I was studying tap as a kid. So that's my first course for the start of 2026. And I really wanted each term that I do, each quarter, to have at least one skill-based course, either dance or music, as well as courses that are more just about going on a journey in my mind. Now, the next course is one that you can do with me if you want, because this is a course that's actually run through Yale University and it's free to take. All of the lectures are available on YouTube in a playlist, and the reading list is available, so you can just take this course if you're interested in it, which I am. So this is the Dantean Translation, the Divine Comedy and Other Minor Works course through Yale University, and they have their syllabus and their reading list all set up. So I was able to find the exact versions, the editions, the translations that they were using for this course of the Divine Comedy in its 3 parts, as well as the Vita Nuova, the additional work that was referenced in the syllabus. So I have these ready to go. And like I said, the lectures are all on YouTube. So I've split those up into my 3-month period, and I'm going to follow along, do the reading, watch the lectures, and also, of course, I've given myself some assignments, a final project to really synthesize what I'm learning. I'm so excited about this because I've been wanting to read the Divine Comedy for so many years. I actually have another copy on my bookshelf that I have started 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 times and never finished. And I'm very excited to get to go through it as part of this course, to have the motivation to finally fully read it from beginning to end. Cannot wait. I'm so excited. But like I said, this is not a course I fully built by myself, and there are lots of online free to take courses from so many universities available right now at your fingertips. So don't necessarily feel overwhelmed by having to build your own course from scratch. You can also just take courses that are available and audit online courses or watch lectures. If you want to take this one along with me, I'll have it linked in the description box. You can check it out. And then the final course that I'm doing for my very first term is Bisexual Erasure from Time Immemorial. And this is another course that I built from scratch for myself based on 3 nonfiction books that I already owned about bisexuality, because I'm doing a Read It or Unhaul It challenge, have been doing it for a few months now, and my wheel randomly landed on Bi, Notes for a Bisexual Revolution, and I read the introduction and started the first chapter and thought, no, I can't read this in a week. There's so much here to dive into. There's so much to pick apart. There's so much additional research and reading I want to do. I need to make a course about this ASAP. And I remembered that I had other books on bisexuality as well, and I could turn this into a 3-month, 1 book per month deep dive into bisexuality through history and today in a bunch of different areas, and just really widen my scope of understanding of bisexuality. So I'm starting with bisexuality in the ancient world, and my first month is going to be focused on ancient history and where bisexuality came from and the representation of bisexuality through history. And then in month 2, I'm going to get into the modern day and get a little more intersectional about it and bring in politics with Bi, Notes for a Bisexual Revolution. And then in month 3, I'm going to get much more internal and reflective. I'm going to read By Any Other Name, which is a collection of essays from a bunch of different bisexual people, and use this as a chance to do a bit more of a deep dive into my own experiences and do some reflection and growth and just expand my understanding of other people's experiences with bisexuality. So very excited for this as well, to get to these 3 books that I've owned for a very long time and dive into something that affects my life every single day. So that's my 3rd course, and that's all, or everything. I should say everything because it's a lot that I'm going to be studying in the first 3 months of 2026. Sexuality and intersectionality, bringing in politics and history. I have a course on literature focused on the Divine Comedy and really breaking it down and getting into the nitty-gritty and appreciating this great work of art. And then I have a course more focused on a practical skill, on dancing, on moving my body and getting back into tapping shape, reminding myself of all my fundamentals, getting my skills cleaned up, working on choreography and improvisation, and also enjoying and celebrating and recognizing the amazing history of tap dancers that I have been able to learn from, who have contributed so much to this art form. And those are the things I'm studying. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm so excited about all 3 of these. And I think that's really the crux. That's the core of this. I think if you pick courses that you just can't help but ramble about for hours, and you just are talking so fast and you're so excited and you're using your hands, then maybe you're on the right track. I'm honestly kind of hating that I was planning so far ahead that I now have to wait an entire month before I can dive in, because I just want to do it now. But I wanted to plan ahead, not feel super rushed, and also get this out in time that if you also wanted to start in the new year, in 2026, with your own personal curriculum, that you have some time, you have a few weeks to spend with this idea and to really narrow it down to the things that light you up the most. So with that, this video is probably a lot longer than I initially planned, but I hope it was helpful. I cannot wait to read what you want to study. Please tell me in the comments if you want to try a personal curriculum and what your courses are. I would love, love, love to know what you're passionate about and what you're curious about. I would love to be tagged if you share any of your projects, if you share your book stack, if you share your Notion setup with all of your courses somewhere online. Please tag me so I can see it. I would love to see it. Don't forget to check out Elizabeth Jean, the creator of this trend. She's amazing and has lots of inspiration on her TikTok. Do let me know if you have an interest in using my Notion template. Like I said, it's pretty basic and straightforward. I didn't want to get too complicated with it, but if that would be useful for you, let me know, and maybe I can make that available to my patrons as a free download. I'm just so excited by this trend of people embracing their curiosity, playing, allowing themselves to get interested in a niche topic and really dive in, to be a little nerdy and to just find that purpose and that joy and that inspiration and the passion that can be so easy to lose in the day-to-day grind. I just find it incredibly inspiring. Love the celebration of intellectual curiosity and learning new skills. I'm so excited about doing it in my own life and really wanted to share it with all of you. So that's it for this video. I really hope it was helpful. Don't forget there's a blog post, so you can follow along with that blog post if that's more helpful for you, or maybe following along both with the video and the blog post is best for your brain, whatever works for you. Thank you again to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use the link in my description box to check out their amazing sale going on right now, up to 30% off the entire website. Ana Luisa's pieces are amazing and I wear them every single day. Thank you again to Ana Luisa for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching it. Also, let me know if you'd want me to do a check-in after my first quarter is done to let you know how it went and let you know what my next courses are going to be. I would definitely be up for that. And I just hope that this was helpful. Leave a learning related emoji down below so I know you watched this whole thing and are a real one. Thank you for watching this whole video. I really appreciate it. Give this video a like if you liked it and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, I'm gonna get going. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.